Ignazio Alboré, Second Democracy. The Implosion of the States, Chapter 3, Part 1. States are destined to implode under the weight of the ever-increasing demand for government spending and public regulation. Spending cannot decrease, because this would be seen as an attack on the people, and politics cannot afford it, in order not to lose consensus and power. Particular government spending lends itself to the claims of those to whom it is not addressed, and so emergency after emergency, it will become increasingly general. For each particular spending, a part of the population will rise up saying that spending has been taken away from more worthy purposes. Politics will satisfy them, and the exception will increasingly become the rule. An infinite race to the top. If you ask for taxes, they will ask for spending. If you ask for more taxes, they will ask for more spending. By now, deficit spending is no longer cyclical, but structural. By imposing many taxes on businesses, they too will ask for subsidies, and so everyone will ask for spending, and the state will end up controlling the entire economy. Spending will always increase, because it will be systematically extended to new categories, and the previous ones will not be cut even when the conditions for providing it are exhausted. The Keynesian claim of deficit spending only in some critical moments, to then disappear with style and discretion, is a political lie. If you spend today, you will always spend. The gears of the consensus machine, once oiled, can no longer be kept dry, if you want the machine to continue to go. Every government expenditure will claim to become a social right, and states will become ungovernable. The persistence of spending, that is, spending that goes beyond temporariness, occasionality, emergency, is what in common feeling and custom makes that spending become a social right. Its elimination is perceived as an attack on democracy. I believe that the dynamics described above define an excess of democracy, that is, an excessive demand and creation of social rights. For certain spending measures and certain habits, even if we realize they're excessive and ineffective, the more time passes, the more unpopular it becomes to abolish them. If every new expenditure becomes a new social right, there is an excess of democracy, and democracy, the liberal state and the rule of law are in danger. Sooner or later, ever greater spending cuts will have to be made, and the social pact will be broken. The balance between taxes and expenditure is essential to sustaining states. If it is claimed that spending on subsidies and transfers must be unlimited, as a social right, states will implode. Bureaucracy is self-referential, it lives off problems, it must create new ones to survive. Power does not disdain fear and collective insecurity, because thanks to them it can expand the protection of the state, which will serve to impose new taxes and, for example, finance new wars. Thus, politics has carte blanche to absorb everything and enter everything. The status quo will be taken to its extreme consequences, taxes will reach the maximum, spending will be cut significantly, the people will feel robbed, and the social pact that supports states will be broken. But before this happens, we will remain attached to the age-old religion called state, because the continuous evolution of the modern era creates uncertainties, to which the state and politics, for better or for worse, provide answers or, better, illusions. An omnipresent government, which kills economic freedom with hyper-regulation and very high taxation, with which it fuels ineffective and unfair spending, and, despite this, has very high unemployment and precariousness, is at serious risk of losing social cohesion. The ever-increasing demand for spending and rights and the ease for everyone to access information thanks to the internet, will generate three tendencies: implosion of states, anarchism, independence, and separatism. Government planning should only concern the guarantee of the two great channels. With second democracy, the government will never have to spend on 1. Transfers, subsidies or special benefits to firms. The only subsidy should be the universal grant to entry, with a general character. 2. Tax expenditure, benefits, deductions, tax credits, exemptions, replacement regimes. 3. Companies rescue, for public companies, except those providing essential services. Only justice, public order, health, school, basic research should always be public. All other sectors, including monetary issuance and social security, can be private or managed with mixed systems or concessions, and monitored by the government through supervisory authorities. It is not a cut in spending, but a replacement for spending. It must be understood that if governments want to significantly increase spending on public health, so that the right to treatment is truly accessible to all, governments will be obliged to limit spending only to the sectors. The government guarantees in many countries high and efficient levels for some public services and social guarantees, but if it continues to do everything, it will no longer have the means or the time to do well even where it excels today, and it will be a social drama. I believe that the thesis of a free market not being able to allocate resources in an optimal manner is not demonstrable, and this is because the problem is not that it is not able, but that there is not the socio-political time for it to allocate in an optimal manner. To create truly free markets, decades are needed, and in the time needed to abolish statist measures and their bureaucracy, establish liberal ones and wait for them to bear better fruit than statist ones, the people will have already rebelled, feeling robbed of guarantees and privileges, and will tend to withdraw their consensus from the political class of the moment. So, the latter, in order not to lose consensus and power, will not implement liberal measures or will implement them halfway and badly. It will postpone the problem to better times that will never come, or to subsequent governments, which in turn will postpone it. Unless there is a long political season, that is, very large majorities with expanded alignments, reconfirmed for multiple mandates, that can afford to tolerate protests and loss of popular consensus. Statist measures have shorter socio-political times, with them maintaining consensus and power is easier. Then, when there is an economic crisis and a lower multiplier effect of both liberal and statist measures, this is always blamed on the former, and politics is forced to maintain or strengthen statist measures. There is de facto irreconcilability between the times of the free market and the times of politicians and citizens in economic difficulty. There is a theoretical economy and one that is felt by the masses. As accurate and effective as the first is, it never fully reaches the masses, who feel the economy differently from the theorists. Although this is due to the ignorance of the masses and the media in economic matters, the theoretical economy cannot ignore the felt one for long, because it risks democratic stability, but it cannot even support it. It is therefore necessary to make the two instances coexist. Second democracy prepares, at the same time as the liberal measures, a system of universal guarantees, so that all citizens can accept and understand the liberal measures, even if they will never fully understand them. Otherwise, market efficiency and collective well-being will never meet. Short and long term must in fact coincide. If economists do not make the two instances coincide, this no man's land will be a territory to be conquered by bad politics. For those who have no income, the time variable has no value, because they live in the present. The complete, analytical and dynamic evaluation of economic measures can be done by those who have income and know they will have it tomorrow. Those who do not have it today and know they will not have it tomorrow can only have a static evaluation of economic measures. There are two kinds of economic policy, which create two economic policies, that of economists, which lives on long-term postponements, and that of politicians, which must provide answers in the short term. Taking the path of second democracy and the two great channels of freedom at the critical moment of the transition from a statist economy to a highly competitive one, would lead to the achievement of the latter without displeasing the masses, granting them universal guarantees. The continuity of the two channels of freedom would mean that moving away from democracy and the rule of law would cost the masses a lot, because they would lose those guarantees. The liberalism-totalitarianism trade-off must be made costly. Realizing the two great channels of freedom is therefore necessary so that it is no longer convenient to fan the flames of hatred, envy, racism. Furthermore, the economic cost of social disorder created by rebellions, disobedience, extremism, would be far greater than that necessary to realize the two great channels of freedom. In fact, no one can delude themselves that revolutionary tendencies of the Marxist type are dead. They will always return, everywhere. They will simply assert themselves, whether intellectuals want it or not, and as always, they will be based on economic ignorance. Those who have nothing to eat do not care about liberalism. They take it out on the rich regardless, and when they seek a justification for their anger, the words of the prophet Marx and his dream nightmare will always be a valid consolation for the desperate, as is Christianity. To the desperate, it is easy to sell the destruction of others as a solution. Second democracy would prevent the advance of such trends, thanks to its macroeconomic approach, universal spending for full and constant employment on a family basis and effective free entry to the market. To save liberalism from corporatism, from the state religion and from totalitarianism, and to avoid the implosion of the states due to an excess of democracy and save them from anarchic tendencies, a pragmatic approach to liberalism is needed, through an economic system that guarantees at least the two great channels of freedom: 1. Freedom of effective entry to the market, with universal grant to entry. Freedom to exit the market. 2. Continuous and compulsory full employment on a family basis.